Welcome to your checkup, where we bring health topics from the doctor's office to your ears. On this podcast, we try to bring medicine closer to its patients. I'm Ed Dulesky, a family medicine resident in the Philadelphia area.
I'm Nicole Rufo. I'm a nurse.
And we're so happy that you can be here with us today.
Especially our Vegas listener.
Yes, shout out to our Vegas listener who we were seeing. We are watching, so please tune in and thank you for listening to us. We're still thinking about you, Oklahoma.
And Cincinnati.
And Cincinnati, too. Reveal yourselves. Show us who you are. All right. What are we going to talk about today, Nick?
Today, I feel like we have some hot takes.
Is it hot?
I mean, they might be to some people.
Okay. Well,
hopefully we don't get canceled. But today we're talking about being the patient.
Yeah.
Establishing care with a doctor and things that will make the experience better and more efficient for both you as the patient and your doctor. Right?
Yeah. I think we're going to pull back the curtain on what's going through our brains when we're in the course of a visit or preparing for a visit and how that differs than what a patient may think, and try to come together in the middle on some of these things just so that we can demystify the whole process. Right. So I think that's fine. I don't think we're not going to say anything here that's going to be too crazy. So this first segment here, we have who is your doctor? Right.
So if you don't already have established care with a primary care doctor, you should find one. Right. We're very passionate about that in this household.
Certainly
so it's not the first time that we're going to say that. You should establish care with a primary care doctor. How you find one, a lot of that is going to be insurance dependent because that's the world that we live in. You can easily log on to your account of whatever insurance you have. They can filter out a list of doctors, and then you can kind of go from there based on, who's in your area, who's taking new patients, all of those things.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. And when it comes to who your doctor is, it's best to identify who one person is. And is usually your primary care doctor. Sometimes people feel more comfortable with other doctors, and that's, it differs from the norm, but it's how it is sometimes. And in that relationship, you reap what you sow. And whatever you put into it, how frequently you go back, they will reciprocate. At least that's my hope.
And it's just, you should have that one person that knows a lot about you, the health conditions that you may or may not have, all of those things. And then even if you just go there once a year for your checkup,
yep.
Then if something happens, I mean, this just happened. I moved into Philly. My other doctor from the suburbs was moving. So I didn't have one established care. 2 weeks later, something happened. I needed all that follow-up, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But, in that moment, we're happy that we had that, because then if something does happen or you're sick or you need to get in to see your doctor, you have that option if you're already established to get in quickly, rather than establishing new care as a new patient. Because unfortunately, I mean, depending on where you live, if you're in a big city like we are, new PCP appointments are booking out months ahead of time. So,
But once you're in, it's a lot easier to have a follow-up appointment. Even pulling back the curtain on my own schedule, I can force the hand of the scheduler and say, this person needs to be seen next week, as opposed to 2 to 6 months it takes to get a new primary care doctor out in the wild for a new appointment. And so being LinkedIn gets you access to those follow-up appointments, which are much sooner. And there are certain special circumstances which are challenging, but it is valuable to have that one person. There's evidence out there too that this makes people live longer, reduces costs. So identifying one person to be your doctor is a great start. Okay.
All right. So
any other thoughts there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
We've identified a doctor. Now you made an appointment to see them.
Yep.
We're going to talk about some etiquette tings right now. Right?
Yeah. And
that's it. It's what it is.
It is. Yeah. To put it plainly. And the expectations that this is the first visit when you're establishing care is a challenging visit for everyone. I'd say. I mean, you just had this experience, and I have this from my perspective daily, where there's a lot to come to the middle on.
So let's first talk about making it to this appointment that we've scheduled.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. If I'm a patient, I schedule an appointment with my new primary care doctor. My appointment is at 1:00.
Right.
Oh, there goes our intern again.
The intern. So yeah, you scheduled an appointment for 1.
I scheduled this appointment with you for 1:00. You as the physician,
Right.
What does 1:00 mean to you?
I'm looking at the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping your butt is in the chair in the room with vitals taken, ready for me to bust through that door. Hey, how you doing? At 1:00.
But an exam room. Oh,
That intern.
Intern is chatty tonight. Now, if you're like me and
Excuse you.
If you're like me and even Eddie here, and the thought of being late to an appointment or something scheduled like makes you break out in hives,
Right.
that 1:00 means the same thing to you. But oftentimes people may be under the impression that 1:00 is when you're walking through the door of the office.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of time from when you come in to when you're in the exam room. You have to check in, inevitably have to wait a couple minutes. Then one of the medical assistants, nurses, whatever they are, will take you back. You got to get your height, your vitals, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And that could even be like a 15, 20-minute process.
Right. And then before you know it, technically that's half the time of the visit.
Yeah. And your visit, your doctor is most likely only allotted, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe 30. Give or take.
Yeah.
Every place is different, but you don't have all the time in the world. And you're not the only patient that is being seen that day by your doctor. So it's important to be there on time to make sure that you get all of the allotted time, right?
Right. Yeah. This is back to kind of it's like a military origin of to be on time, to be early is to be on time, to be on time is to be late.
Yeah.
And
and if you're looking up, okay, you made this appointment with this new doctor, you're plugging the address into your GPS. If it's going to take you 20 minutes to drive there, leave at least 10 minutes of wiggle room.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a new place, you don't know the parking situation, you don't know exactly where the office is. That way you can get there and be on time.
And places usually have late policies too.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to get hit with a fine. Ours doesn't where I work, but some places do. And what I'll say is that if someone things happen.
And we're not talking about the accidents and the traffic and whatever happened. We know things happen.
Recently had to cancel an appointment myself. So things happen.
Of me.
But you're setting yourself up for success if taking it from the perspective of if you get there early for the appointment. And usually these places recommend your appointments at 1, arrive at 12:45.
Especially if they're new patient stuff. A lot of times now, whatever kind of new patient paperwork can be done online. But a lot of times you have to sit there and fill out, your whole life story. And you don't want to waste time with your doctor to fill out the paperwork.
Right. And you make it a different version of a person walking into a room if you have less time, because if you're late, the late policy that I see frequently is 15 minutes late. Mm-hmm. And
there's a tighter late policy where I get my eyebrows waxed. I'm just saying.
Right. That's more lenient. But the appointment time for the visit at my level of training is 25 minutes. But for attendings, it's 20. 15 minutes late to a 20-minute appointment leaves you 5 minutes, which is impossible to do anything, especially when you consider getting things together. So things happen. We totally get that.
And I feel like if you kind of have to think about it, at least in my head, if it was important enough for you to schedule this appointment, it should be important enough to you to be on time for that appointment, especially if you're going with a problem or an issue. If that's important enough for you to see a doctor about, then you have to be on time. Yeah.
And I think, there's some coming to the middle for me to do as well. No one's going to be butt in chair at 1 p.m. for the appointment because I'm showing up to my haircuts. If she's
after, everyone listens to this podcast episode, everyone's going to be on time for all their appointments now.
Right. Hopefully. But I'm showing up, walking in the door to my haircut at the exact time that I have scheduled.
Okay, well, we need to make a podcast episode for you too.
No, I know. And so it's helpful when there's enough time because there's already not enough. Mm-hmm. And to have less is just impossible. So that's that. So what's already a challenging visit is the first visit, which is establishing care. So you've discovered this new primary care doctor. You're very excited. You have an entire health history, even if you're healthy. Mm-hmm. And now you're going to meet this person who doesn't know you.
And I think there's also, which you can answer because obviously I don't know, when someone's filling out that new patient paperwork, do you see it?
Not really.
You don't. Which I guess can be kind of frustrating to the patient because you're like, I just spent all this time writing down my whole life story and all the meds I take. And now they're being asked their whole life story and what meds they take and, what surgeries they've had and blah, blah, blah.
And people have said that too. They're like, do you... Yeah. Oh, I wrote this down. Didn't you see it?
I did this.
I'm like, oh, darn.
Honestly, it probably gets in your paper chart somewhere and
disappears into the abyss.
Not sure what happens after that.
And there's some stuff like some stuff comes over if you're in like certain health records, but sometimes things don't pop up until you're literally in the chair. I am bewildered about how this stuff works. Sometimes it doesn't populate, and then I learn things as I speak to you, and so it doesn't always come over.
Which is the majority of, right? Like you said, the new patient appointment, you're meeting someone for the first time.
Right.
If you're the patient establishing care with someone, it should be kind of on their mind going into it. Like, I don't know this person doesn't know me. It's your responsibility to tell your doctor your issues, your problems, right? Knowing that not everything is automatically getting pulled over from maybe where you were seen before or what have you. And maybe a lot of that was, but it's always good just to talk about all of the things.
It totally is. And I mean, it's my style to ask you about who you are in your life. Mm-hmm. Sure, it plays into your social history, but it gives me an idea of what motivates you. And I will be asking about that. And that takes some time. But I think that early investment goes a long way in terms of learning about someone and their health and how it impacts them. But that takes time. Mm-hmm. And some of that very first visit is me getting to know you as the human being. But then now we have to come to the middle on like, I have a list of things that I want to cover with you based on what I've reviewed or as I'm learning in time. And you, as the patient, probably have concerns that are new because now you have this new doctor that you're excited about that you also want to have addressed.
Is it realistic for a new patient who's at their first visit with a new doctor to have, say, a list of 5 problems that they want to address with you?
No.
In that new patient visit?
No. Because each problem gets a slice of the pie.
Mm-hmm. If they do come to you with this list of this whole list of problems that they have, how would you kind of go about that or advise someone to kind of cherry pick exactly what they want to talk about?
Yeah. I'm getting to know who you are as a person, and then I am figuring out what you think the most important thing is to your health. And then I'm trying to get in what I think the most important thing is to your health. And we are agenda setting for the rest of our relationship. And
it's fine if you come with all those problems, but you should have the expectation, or maybe you should even think about it before. This is the most important thing that I talk about.
Yes. And make that list. Write that list down. In this theme of like being
And then if there are things that, you told your doctor these 5 things, this is the one I'm most concerned about. But then if your doctor says, actually, I would be more concerned about this is what I want to talk about now. And then maybe they can address something more, important to your health at that moment.
Absolutely.
Or whatever.
No, and that's exactly that. And at that first visit, you're probably coming with your chronic medications. We'll get those refilled. But even those deserve it's called a MedRec, a medicine reconciliation. And along with the MedRec is my assessment of each of your chronic problems. And that takes time. And these concerns that people have, new and old, are filled with depth and complexity. And the patient, as they live with these issues, thinks about them all the time. But when it is presented to me for the first time, it's novel, it's new. And I'm not taking what other people have done for granted. I'm thinking about it on my own, which independently takes its own amount of thought and effort. And so, taking that most important thing and trying to align with your primary care doctor about what you think the most important part of your health is, and coming to the middle and start working on that list. Write it down. Literally have a list in front of you of what your concerns about, but also be open and gentle with us that we want to help you desperately, but we want to do it in the right and most responsible way. And sometimes that isn't doing everything in one visit.
Sometimes you have to come back in 2 weeks or a month or whatever to address all those issues.
Yeah.
Because you can't you can't realistically expect in the 20 to 30 minutes, if you're lucky, to get to know someone, like for your doctor to get to know you, kind of wrap their head around all of the things that you may or may not have going on, then address an issue of all these things that are going on, then make a plan. Like it just isn't a realistic thing.
Right. Especially
to happen, right?
when it's to be so specific and patient-centered and unique to each individual. And at that point, if you do try to do all those things, the quality suffers. And there's no two ways about it. You can try to wrap it up in a bow and make it seem better than it is, but it's not as thorough and it's not productive. And so that follow-up appointment, I mean, really to pull back the curtain, if you have any sort of illness, and we talk about this when I come home, it's a month. You're coming back in a month that I'm seeing you. And then I start inching things out and saying, like, if it's a month, we're starting to feel a little bit better about where we're at. We'll go to 3 months. Very rarely am I like, hey, see you in a year, because most people have something that needs to be followed up with sooner than later.
So those are, I think, those all of the patient tings.
Yeah, that's covered in the first visit.
Established care. We talked about getting to your appointment on time and kind of what's happening on the background or on the other side. Yeah, I guess in the background of, your doctor's maybe only allotted 20 minutes to see you. That's why it's important to show up on time, kind of things like that. And
like, if you're not to jump back in here too much, but like you kind of have to allow a bit of time because, I mean, if this is a nice like community effort where everyone's getting there on time, then it works. But sometimes it doesn't. And if you have to get back to work or something and then you're in a rush and you're not in a headspace to work through the concerns that you have, you need to allow some time for things to happen. Helpful tips: get the first appointment in the morning.
Try to get that first appointment.
Or afternoon, like right after lunch or first thing in the morning. Find out when it is and get that one because
there's what's your earliest appointment? Take that one.
Because
I just had a 3:00 appointment and I was there for 2 hours because of everything that happened previously in the day before I got there.
Right. It all adds up. Yeah.
Okay. So now getting a little tech savvy.
Oh, yes.
Patient portals are a hot thing, right? Relatively new in like the grand scheme of medicine, I guess.
Yeah.
You'd say.
Definitely.
Right? So the patient portal, you most likely have one, right? If you've been to a doctor.
It is a form of the electronic health record, and patients have access to a lot of information. And this is a very like multi-dimensional issue and tool.
And it's a great tool because you can see all of your appointments that you have.
Right.
You can see any labs, tests, things like that. They all kind of live in one spot. And then communication with your doctor also lives in this portal.
And so something we were talking about today is the optics of having that in your...
The optics from the patient are great.
Right.
And I think it's understandably viewed from a patient perspective because I don't know that it's ever the most efficient use of the portal is explained.
No.
I think they're just handed this information, sign up for this portal, and then there's a little thing on the app where you can message your doc, you can hit message, and then your doctor's name pops up and all these things. And the optics are that you now have 24/7 access to your doctor.
Mm-hmm. And despite every pop-up that comes up saying that this is not for this purpose, if this is emergent, don't use this.
I think it's a really great tool. And there are things like my doctor just messaged me, this was a lab that came back. I want you now to go see this doctor. I put in this order. Right. Like that's an efficient way to handle something.
Beautiful.
Simple. I think if you have a concern, I mean, if you have any kind of real concern, you really should be coming in to get evaluated, right?
Yes.
And I think if you're typing a message to your doctor and we're now a paragraph deep,
right,
or something like, you got to call and come in and make an appointment.
Yeah,
right?
It's time for an appointment at that point. Yeah, and the message you'll get back is a like canned response of this concern deserves the attention and time that can be offered during a visit. And that's how it is. I will say it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It can be dangerous when things get long and complicated to concerns that patients write, to entertain that and try to practice medicine over my chart.
Mm-hmm.
And that, or a patient portal. And so often, nearly everything that's in there should be discussed in a visit. Even continuing a medication should be discussed in a visit, because there's probably lab follow-up. There's probably conversation about, is the medicine working? But refills are sent there too, and they're often just sent through.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're reconciled, depending on your strategy. And so from my perspective, there's a system in place where if a message goes through, it sits in a queue, it's screened, and maybe 2 to 3 days later, I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And God forbid, if it's a message that's important.
Yeah. And if it is a real issue, in the time it took you to send that message, you could have just called the office and maybe be seen in the next, day or so.
Right. Or if God forbid it's an
whatever.
emergency and you need to go get help right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there are pop-ups everywhere that say, if this is an emergency, call 911. It's such a repeated, inundated statement that I don't even know if it's real anymore, and people pay attention to it, but it's a very real thing. And there have been times where I explicitly state to a patient, this is something I'm okay with you messaging me. I want to know. Please do message me. Like a communication. I started a new medicine. I want to know if it's working, but I don't need you to come all the way into the office. Please message me. That's fine.
And you can even ask your doctor when you're there, when you're talking about whatever issue or you're starting a new med, you can even say, can I message you about this? Or is it better if, whatever it might be, that I come in, and they might just be able to tell you right there.
Right. And there's some things, like if it's a continuation from the last visit, then I think it's within the responsibility of whoever did that visit to address that concern. But if it's new, nearly every single time, it should be seen. It should be evaluated with a formal visit in those confines, because there's just regulations, there's thought. It's a ritual that is done to assess what is going on, to make sure someone's safe, and then try to figure out what's happening. Wow. Patient portal.
Blessing and a curse. But I think it's important that people know that that isn't how it should be utilized.
Yeah, it's a very delicate tool. It is. Anything
else you want to say about being a patient?
Go back to your doctor. Like when I tell you, or when someone tells you to follow up with them, whether it's stated out loud, there's a reason. And there's another thing to be discussed. Hopefully it's said out loud. Like, this next time we're going to work on this.
And to see if, whatever you decided in visit A, you don't just start someone on whatever kind of plan that they have and then just send them off.
Never to see them
out
again.
Into the zeitgeist. You need to know if it's working, because if it's not, then you need to adjust X, Y, or Z, try something new, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Because newsflash, not every plan A works, which is why it's plan A. And then there's a B. And some of the most important lessons that I've had are when a patient comes back and tells me and gives me feedback about what happened. Like, this didn't work for me. I stopped this medicine. That moment of honesty is so huge for the relationship, the doctor-patient relationship, but also huge for management and any sort of decision making that goes into helping someone's concern. And so going back and giving time to yourself in that relationship is so worth it. So definitely go back.
And go back on time.
Button chair,
1:00. Don't be late. Got anything else to talk about, Dulesky?
Make sure you stop your doctor if they're speaking in jargon.
That's a good one. Yeah, I imagine it's really easy for someone to just sit there and say, yep, okay, and nod their head yes, and not actually fully comprehend or absorb everything that is being said.
Yeah.
If you don't understand something, say it and they'll explain it in a different way.
Yeah. And that's a challenging thing, because I realize that not everyone has a doctor who maybe looks at them while the visit's happening or feels like they're being spoken to, because there's so much emphasis on documentation and the computer. And so stepping outside of your comfort zone is challenging, but I do always encourage my patients to be advocates for themselves and be an agent of their own health. And so part of that is getting the answers to the questions that you have.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm a little confused how you explained that.
Yeah.
Do you mind?
That's a great script, to hold on to when it happens.
You're confused how it was explained. Do you mind trying to make me understand better or something like that?
Yeah, I'd welcome that.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows that I am convoluted sometimes. And
I mean, we recorded our hypertension episode and it was difficult even sitting for you to explain in a non-difficult way how to explain what blood pressure is. Right.
Yeah. Oh, it's an art.
Yeah.
Trying to get better and better with this medium here.
Yeah. I mean, I know you only have 2 brain cells to rub together, but I'm just kidding. You're very smart.
Thank you. Writing things down is important. Keeping logs. I mean, the way that a lot of our brains work are with science. And if we can see trends over time and compare data from one moment to another, it's really helpful for people with blood pressure problems or headaches. Huge for headaches, because it's so subjective. It's only what you're experiencing. And so if you can write down how many headache days you have, what's worse, what brings them on, that's something that's huge.
So find a doctor, establish care. Go to your appointments, go to your follow-up appointments.
Yep.
If your doctor wants you back in 2 weeks, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Go back in 2 weeks.
Usually means you're pretty unwell.
Yeah. If they want you back in a month, go back in a month. If you have a new problem, don't go to the portal to message your doctor. Call the office to make an appointment.
It's so tempting, but
It is.
Make the appointment.
I mean, especially if it's like a random hour, it's like 8 o'clock at night, you have this new issue. Your doctor isn't sitting there in front of their laptop waiting for an epic message to pop up.
Oh, look at that.
Here's a new one. Yeah. Your doctor may or may not have a life outside of their work. So they're not just waiting for you to message them. Okay. Well.
Yeah. Well, I don't think this will be the only episode of this type, though I think we did cover a lot here on being a patient and what that means. It's not easy.
No.
It's a crazy healthcare system we're in.
Well, this is where we live.
Yeah. But there are definitely things that you can do to help make it a better experience. And hopefully you can get yourself an excellent primary care doctor. If you're listening to this as an inspired med student or someone thinking about going into medicine, consider primary care. My shameless pitch. Okay. Well, thank you for coming and joining us on this being a patient journey. It's not easy, but we're hoping that this episode we were able to kind of bridge the gap between what's going on behind the scenes and what you're experiencing as a patient and how to come to the middle to be the most productive. Any last thoughts?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow our Instagram, Your Checkup Podcast. And most importantly, stay healthy, my friends. I'm Ed Dulesky.
I'm Nicola Rufo.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
This information may provide a brief overview of diagnosis, treatment, and medications. It's not exhaustive and is a tool to help you understand potential options about your health. It doesn't cover all details about conditions, treatments, or medications for a specific person. This is not medical advice or an attempt to substitute medical advice. You should contact a healthcare provider for personalized guidance based on your unique circumstances. We explicitly disclaim any liability relating to the information given or its use. This content doesn't endorse any treatments or medications for a specific patient. Always talk to your healthcare provider for complete information tailored to you. In short, I'm not your doctor.
I am not your nurse.
And make sure you go get your own checkup with your own personal doctor.